Day 352 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzy here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. And starting off, we'll head over to the Russian military losses, where Russia is currently sitting on 135,740 Russian military personnel losses, you know how it goes, which represents an addition of 730 in the past 24 hours in terms of those losses. And also the hardware stats, so the losses there include 3 tanks, 3 APVs, 7 artillery systems, and 1 Russian attack helicopter loss, which I'll show you guys shortly there as well. Then we'll move back to the map, and on the map we'll head over to start out in Ukraine, where air defense has been working vigorously in many regions of Ukraine today, due to Russia milking out perhaps one of its last large-scale wintertime missile salvo attacks in an effort to take out Ukrainian infrastructure to keep the country's population cold this winter. However, the not-so-cold Ukrainian winter weather is receding. Many civilians have access to off-the-grid backup generators one way or another to keep them warm now. In fact, just today, Ukraine received 259 heavy-duty generators from Japan. And so in terms of these Russian strikes today, in total there was, 61 out of the 71 missiles launched by Russia were neutralized by the Ukrainian armed forces. And these missiles, of which were flying over Lviv, Odessa, Mykolaiv, Kharkiv, and the capital of Kyiv also. And it was even reported earlier in the day that 2 Russian caliber cruise missiles crossed the state border of Ukraine with Moldova. Then, shortly after, these missiles crossed Romanian airspace at the crossing point of the 3 country borders. Now, these missiles were launched in particular from caliber missile naval cruisers from the Black Sea and even further away in the Caspian Sea too. And I was wondering where that point of the intersection would be. Perhaps it's down below the bottom or probably further up high. So if I was to say that the naval carriers or the caliber cruise missiles where Russia fired the missiles from, obviously somewhere along there, or sometimes also at the Sea of Azov. So let's actually say we do know that a lot of them are stationed here, and that's pretty much the intersecting point right there in the middle between Romanian airspace, Ukrainian, and Moldovan airspace. So obviously quite the escalatory flight path they chose to take, whether it was by design or they're just that poor at planning. Oh, and also there was also some Iranian-made Shahed drones launched from the Sea of Azov in particular as well today, so no surprises there. Of which we have the footage of one in the Dnipro airspace, so that's hanging around here, being taken out at about 5 a.m. this morning. And as expected, just in general, citizens rushed to safe haven locations like the metro here in the capital of Kyiv. And so it really remains to be seen if Russia continues this countrywide salvo of attacks, of missile attacks, as spring is now just right around the corner. And these Russian missile strikes were intended to wreak havoc on Ukraine during the cold winter, which Russia admitted themselves in the hopes that there would be a Ukrainian movement to have a change of heart about the ongoing conflict and push for internal political change. And that never happened, of course. It looks like Ukrainians won't have their spirit broken by these attempts. Oh, and most importantly, I personally find that before this strike today, it's been 15 days since the last large wave missile attack from Russia, thereby in fact making it the longest period of time between strikes. Add to that, the size of the Russian attacks, missile strikes, is now well under the 100+ missile rate, like the numbers they used to fire at. So Russia is losing the effectiveness of this strike capability more and more now. Then we'll move along and have more of a specific look at some of the frontline locations like the Donbass today, where somewhat in the north of the Donbass, the Russian VDV units have been trying to force a breakthrough towards Yampolivka, so around this region here. So the Russian VDV units are the Russian airborne troops who are said to be one of the most elite and mobile branches of the Russian military, or, well, supposedly they're elite, because just 2 weeks ago on Russian state TV, a military analyst accidentally let it slip that they had lost about 40 to 60% of their VDV units since the beginning of February's invasion last year. So their combat effectiveness is likely restricted as a result, in the least. Then we'll move across to a bit further down on the map, obviously take a quick peek at Bakhmut. So the situation is said to be fairly stable right now, considering it's a major frontline location. In fact, certain small parts just to the east of the city have been reclaimed by the Ukrainian forces after a successful AFU counterattack occurred today. And it doesn't yet show it on this map here, but it's somewhere in this region, just to the very east location. And you know what? A potential reason for this currently stabilized situation with Bakhmut does seem to be, at least in part, due to having something to do with the Wagner boss, Prigozhin, from the private militia group, the PMC there, who seems to have fallen out of favor with Putin recently. But more importantly, Prigozhin just announced he no longer has access to prisoners from the Russian prison system, which means there may be no way for Russia to truly replace these death battalions, who were really the only ones to achieve any notable success in recent months. And now, with Prigozhin being starved of his precious resource, these prisoners, the reasons could be politically motivated, such as the idea going around that Putin started to have concerns that the Wagner group was becoming too powerful, so much so that they might start to have their own backstabbing political agendas for control of Russia. So it's a real darn shame for these autocratic nations that no one can really rely on or seem to trust anyone else within these societies. Almost like a political faction dog-eat-dog world. Then we'll move down a little bit to, let's see, there was some action here today in Marinka. So the Ukrainian forces repelled enemy assaults near Marinka after striking with, so this is Ukrainian artillery fire, of course. Again, the video is a bit too spicy for this platform, but the footage shows about 20 Russian infantry, and just that, nothing else. No heavy armor, tanks, no IFVs, causing these Russian forces, these soldiers, to scurry away at the first strike from the Ukrainian artillery, and most of them leaving on foot back to where they came from. And somehow the footage is almost comedic. So if you really want to check it out from my Patreon page, I dubbed in some Charlie Chaplin music over the footage, just for fun, you know? Let's lighten things up a bit. Then, somewhere in the Greater East here, so Ukrainian forces destroyed a Russian Mi-24 attack helicopter. So in this grainy footage, the heli seemed to make an emergency landing, but then it didn't last too long after that landing due to a follow-up artillery strike in the fields. Then we'll move across to some quick news for today. So, Ukrainian soldiers have gone to Belgium to learn and master how to use underwater drones, according to the Belgian defense minister. These drones can find dangerous things like mines and spy equipment, and eventually even have the chance to even up the naval odds in the Black Sea. Something that Russia has become increasingly worried about in the last few months in this conflict. Because when a $250,000 underwater drone takes out a $100 million Russian naval cruiser, well, that's a good deal. Then in some other news, Lithuania will hand over 36 L-70 anti-aircraft systems to Ukraine to counter Russia's use of the Shahed drones, which they would be particularly more suited for, as confirmed by the Lithuanian MOD during a press conference today. So as you can see, the air defense systems continuing to flow into Ukraine, which is fantastic to see, although I must say they can never come soon enough. Then a couple of quick funnies to round it off with today, guys. So starting off, everybody's favorite head of government and Putin lapdog right now, so Hungarian President Viktor Orban, was very unwelcoming to Zelensky from yesterday's EU summit at the European Parliament in Brussels. So this classy act of a PM ignored Zelensky. He sat down, he shuffled his papers, he checked his tie, he had a mint, and in fact, the only one sitting down when Zelensky was getting some really welcoming greetings. And just so you know, there's actually a lot of really nice Hungarians out there, particularly in the comments section. And as it turns out, they are by no means fond of this guy either. Then, speaking of comments for our final funny to round it all off for today, guys, so troll comments like this one from today that says, "I strongly advise Ukraine to negotiate with Russia." Then they got into a whole bunch of short-sighted reasons as to why, and so you know what? Fair enough. It's an opinion. People can have them, right? But sometimes it can be easy to spot a troll's account when you click on them, for instance, like I did with this one, only to find they've created this account the very same day. So February the 10th, 2023. Also, sometimes there's no photo, there's no videos posted, there's no likes, there's no playlist, nothing on the account. So this particular account really ticked off every potential troll box, in my opinion. Oh, and also, even further, if you were to run a Google search on the probably fake name, nothing on the entire internet showed up for the name. Well, that's a bit strange, isn't it? So apparently, as soon as this person signed up for an account today, the first thing that they just had to do was spin these false geopolitical narratives. I highly doubt it. Instead, I'm calling this one out as a paid troll account. And so what I like to do is not even engage with them per se, but rather just to creatively somehow call them out for who they really are. Just like that. So thanks for watching, guys. Please leave a comment, subscribe, hit that like button, and I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers.